All right, so we are live. How's everyone doing? So a little bit of a late stream tonight. I just got back from the National about 2 hours ago. So I unpacked and my card room was a little bit of a mess, and I had a bunch of stuff, so I've been putting stuff away, getting organized. But I did want to make a video before I went to sleep, just to share my thoughts. So for those who don't know, the National Card Show is like the biggest sports card show, the biggest card show in the country. And yeah, I was curious and interested in going and seeing how it was. As you guys probably know, I collect, and maybe some people who've never watched this channel might watch this stream, but I'm most known for my Pokemon card collection, but I also collect a lot of 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, even some 1890s non-sports stuff, as well as pretty much every sort of TCG, CCG, including lots of dead ones from the last 20 to 30 years. And so the National, I thought, would be a really great place to find a lot of this stuff. And it sort of turned out that there was some of all of that there, but I really could get better prices just on eBay and on auctions. Now, I wasn't there the last day because the last day is actually tomorrow. I'm recording this late on Saturday. And so it's possible that people will start to lower their prices, on certain things. But there was stuff that I was looking to buy that I had been buying for the past year, slowly as I sort of found it, that was actually selling at the National quite a bit higher than I have been buying it over the last few months on eBay, which was interesting. And so there were things that I was sort of talking to dealers with and hoping would come down that on the last day, that I was hoping to sort of maybe deal with them towards the end of when before I was about to leave, that someone just kind of scooped up, someone else would buy. So it was kind of interesting. I guess some of the highlights for me, hung out a lot with Radar and some other guys that you guys probably might know, people in the Discord. Some nice guys, which was fun. As far as like pickups and buys, I bought a Masterwork Star Wars box with John, with Radar, and we both opened it, which I do not suggest normally doing. I will say, let's see where I put it. I don't even know. I'm completely disorganized, but I did pull. Let's see if I have it here somewhere. Let's see. Oh, I did pull. This was the best card I pulled from it, which is actually a pretty good hit. Out of 25. And even pulling this. So this card might be worth like $400, $500. I was doing a little bit of research on it. Like the non-numbered version sold for about 200 a couple of times. So it actually might be worth a little bit more than I thought it was. So it might make me back my money on the box, but I got lucky to pull this good of a card. This is from the 2021 Masterwork Star Wars box. And even so, I barely broke even because we paid probably $375 on the box. Maybe if I grade it, maybe if it gets a good grade, I could sell for even more. I still think this type of stuff is generally undervalued and underrated. Although there's other Star Wars stuff I think is even more undervalued and underrated. But that was my only pickup at the National. So because all the Pokemon stuff was too expensive, and not that great, not that interesting. There was like a few nice Pokemon cards there for sale. There was like a Shadowless PSA 10 Blastoise that a couple of guys I met were going after. One ended up trading for it, and the other one ended up interestingly offering sort of a similar trade, but the other guy just offered a little bit more, so he ended up getting it. That was the most excitement that I heard of any Pokemon selling for sports guys out there. I'm assume hopefully the national was good for you guys, and you guys were able to pick up a bunch of good deals. Pissed I missed the Blastoise in chat. Yeah. Yeah, Vintage Pokemon Hunter, one of the guys I was got a chance to hang out with a bit. Super great guy. But I guess kind of rambling here, but I guess my overall takeaway was like it was fun. A little surprised at how high the prices were on things. You know, I've been doing much better on auctions on eBay, whereas at Collecticon, I felt like there was a lot, maybe not a lot more overall, probably a little bit more, but it was so much of it was Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic and even some Dragon Ball and even saw some little bit of Batman and Superman and Star Wars. And it was just better for non-sports people. So maybe we can get some more non-sports people to vend at the national in the future and you know be more engaged in that event. But I think at this point, from my perspective, it's fun going as a non-sport collector, and you will see some cool vintage stuff. But it's not going to be a great place to get a lot of pickups, at least at this one. But we'll see. Maybe I'll go again next year. Not sure. I will say that I think the non-sport market in general and Pokemon seems to be doing pretty well right now. It's really funny because like depending on who I talk to, they give me a completely different answer. Like some people are like, it's dying. Some people are like, I'm getting out of sports and getting into Pokemon because I think it's really good value and I think it's going to go up again. There's a lot of opinions out there. My personal one is that the market is pretty solid, pretty strong. The people who really enjoy it are enjoying it. I definitely think there's less sort of like that mania, speculative fever. But I also think things are a little bit calmer, a little bit more steady, and people are a little bit more confident starting to buy again in this climate than they were even like a month ago or 2 months ago. Things can change quickly. That could also be as a result of just like the little rally we've seen in the stock market, crypto market, people just feeling a little bit more positive about the economy in general. It's very hard to know because I look at cards just like every day, many hours a day and all these types of things. I do see and experience these like slight swings, but it doesn't mean that it's like the start of some new huge long-term trend. But I'll continue reporting to you guys sort of the small trends. I've talked to a number of my friends who are pretty big sellers, and from my own experience, and they've definitely had good sales volume type of thing over the last few months. I think that the people who vend at the national are largely sports guys who I think last year got a bit into Pokemon because people were just making a lot of money speculating on it. And I think a lot of those people have sold their Pokemon, have got out of Pokemon, have gone back into sports because they don't really have so much interest in it. And they're more, into it for the sort of upside investment potential. And I think because of that, a lot of people probably who vended Pokemon last year probably had less Pokemon to vend this year because they probably sold a decent amount of it already. That being said, the prices were very high there. So it wasn't like a lot of these vendors were like trying to dump their last bit of stuff. Maybe a lot of these vendors, this is all just random speculation. Maybe a lot of these vendors bought a decent amount of this Pokemon at a pretty high price. And so this is stuff that they're kind of pretty underwater. And so they're still trying to list it quite high. But I think within like the Pokemon community, the people who got into it this past year because they really enjoy it, they grew up with it, they're engaged with it. I think that community is still really, really strong. People are buying steadily, and there's a lot of people who have a lot left to buy. And are sort of waiting to see what prices are going to do and are probably slowly buying into it. So I guess other highlights, I did go to the trade night with a few friends. Don Diego's trade night, and that was actually the highlight of the entire national because it was all just like Pokemon and also some like Dragon Ball Z DBZ collectors like Wolfie and others, and got to see just some of my favorite cards from that hobby. These are extremely rare, extremely hard cards to find. Like Wolfie and some of these guys are the only guys in the world with some of them graded at the grades that they're at. So to be able to see them in person, we almost like worked out a trade. We may still work out a trade for some cards in the future. And then I actually sold some there. I didn't sell anything at the national. I didn't really try to sell at the national. The dealers who were selling Pokemon, I bought mostly like fairly high, middle to high endy stuff, and it just didn't seem like it was even worth going to the dealers and going to people at the national to try to sell anything. Whereas at the trade night, there was actually I actually was able to sell some things, a decent amount, and because it was sort of like a concentrated group of non-sport collectors and mostly Pokemon collectors, and that was much better. That's what Collecticon is like. Overall, I had a much better time, and I think it's much more worthwhile for particularly Pokemon collectors. But even sort of non-sport collectors like me who collect everything from Disney cards to Superman to Batman to Marvel to Star Wars at this point, you know, Collecticon and things like that seem to be better, but hard to know. You know, maybe the national will be different next year. And I still, if it's close to you, like if you're choosing between one or the other and both are fairly expensive and you have to travel, I would only go I would focus on the Collecticons unless your friends are specifically going to the national or you're very into sports cards. But if you're close to the national and you're into Pokemon and non-sports cards, I do think it's worth going. And overall, even though I didn't like pick up anything, you know, which is fine. At the end of the day, because I'm a collector, and I'm not paying my bills with this stuff. I don't like, it's not like a failed trip because I didn't like pick up anything or get anything at a good deal. It's just like a little bit less fun. But overall it was really fun. Went to the casino with friends a bunch, you know, had a bunch of like great meals, walked on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, you know, all that stuff was great. It's sort of like we could have just gotten together though, somewhere cool, you know, a bunch of us and all hung out and, you know, had our own little event. And it would have probably been just as fun, just as cool for us. All right. So I'm going to get into some questions. So if people have any questions, feel free to ask me. Let's see what we got here. Jose Bernardes, Chemo Collects, Team Trubbish, Jake from Palatine. How you all doing? Como, Kai is here. Jeremy. Let's see. So I saw some, let me turn off my Discord alerts here. So I saw some crazy stuff. Someone picked up that PSA 10 Melodic EX from Wolfie Collects. Wild stuff in that trade room. Yeah, the trade room was fun. Oh, I didn't know Wolfie ended up selling that card. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful card. And I imagine pretty low pop, though I don't know it offhand. It was great hanging out with you as well. It was nice meeting a bunch of you. I love meeting people who are just like passionate about collecting. It's way more enjoyable to meet you guys in person and actually hang out and get to know you a little bit, you know, who you are, why you collect, all that sort of stuff. Hoping to do a lot more of that at Denver. I like talking to you guys here, but it's like much more enjoyable in person. And I really like meeting people and getting a sense of like who people really are. So, you know, you guys are great. It was great hanging out with you. Let's see. Maybe so. I've seen a massive price influx in the misprint error market. Do you follow this, Jake? This is probably, so I would say This is probably the area of the market that I follow the least. This and signatures are probably the things that I just don't engage with and follow really, because I'm just not super interested into them or into them. My like immediate thought, I did see some errors actually at the national and in some guys' collections that people were trying to sell, and there did seem to be some interest. Maybe Charlie, talking about it on Pawn Stars had something to do with that. I have no idea. That's interesting. That's super interesting. The reason I don't follow it is because I literally don't. First of all, I think it's very. I think those types of markets, um, it's so hard to price things, and I feel like it's so it's so speculative and unestablished that I don't feel like it's a good place to like invest and make money for flipping. And I don't enjoy them particularly as a collector. So there's just not that much there for me. Maybe though somewhere down the line, because a number of my friends are like super into errors, and it's one of those things that like the deeper you get into hobby, the longer you're in it. Sometimes something you didn't like before you start to get into and like. But I just still, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I still just it just doesn't really do it for me at this point. Let's see. Auctions got to be better. However, finding pop 10 to 15 PSA 10 cards is harder to do on eBay. So I didn't see that at the National. I did see it at the trade night, but most of the people at the trade night didn't. In fact, I don't know if anyone at the trade. I'm probably some people at the trade night, but I don't know if any of them actually had booths at the National where the cards would have been out. So why the trade night was so great was it was like all of the Pokemon non-sport people, packed into one little room who were there, and there were some great cards in that room. That's for sure. So that would definitely have been a place to. There were, I brought some very low pop cards like that, and I saw a number of other ones in the room, so it was cool. Let's see. Why is it called the National? Seems like a pretty snooty name for a middle of the road convention. It is pretty massive. And as I said before, I do suggest people going to it. It's probably phenomenal for sports. There were so many sports cards there. I'm working on a sports card collection of it's pretty sizable, but it's very specific. I'm trying to get rookies of every basketball player of every basketball player, of every Hall of Famer autographed. I'm about halfway through, but I'm missing some of the biggest names. I did keep an eye out for some of that stuff there. But it's fairly niche trying to find those. And I didn't see any, and I think I saw maybe a couple, but not at the best prices I felt comfortable paying. Jacob House says, I'm transitioning into the sports for the upside to speed along my personal collection goals of Pokemon. So I will tell you guys one cool thing. So I talked about these probably about maybe 7-8 months ago. I'll show them again. I don't even know if I've ever showed them on my actual channel. I tend not to show the stuff that I'm speculating on, and the stuff that I think is like super hidden and undervalued. I do show it a little bit more on the Patreon. But some stuff. So these were interesting. There were a number of these Mickey Mouse cards that actually sold at the National. So this is the number one. I'll show you a few of like the key ones. Here's another key one. Walt Disney drawing Mickey. These are from 1935. I actually bought like a ton of these over the last probably 2 years because I thought that they were extremely cool, extremely undervalued. And they have really gone up in price a lot. I think someone bought like 8 to 10 of them for $20,000 at the National, and I have a lot. So I'm gonna probably sell some and figure out exactly what to do with them, because I have some doubles and some But that was cool to see that some of these, I go out on a limb a lot on stuff that nobody's talking about in the Pokemon card community, and stuff that I speculated a lot on those on the Superman cards from 1940, and some other like Hearts of War, some other things that are a little bit more well known, and that stuff is already started to do quite well. This is ballooned. It's probably like 10x in price from a year and a half ago, uh, depending on the card you look at. But overall, probably 8 to 10x. And I was buying this stuff at the height of the Pokemon boom, which shows you that not everything boomed at the exact same time. And sometimes it takes a big boom in kind of a more obvious area, and then the attentions and demand starts to trickle to sort of other things, become aware of other things. These types of things there are very few people in the world who know what these cards are. I talked to a few people at the National who, one guy for a while who says that he's probably the most knowledgeable person on them and has been tracking every single cert number and is super engaged and involved in the site. And he doesn't even know how many cards come in the packs. So there were a few packs at the National. John and I were gonna maybe buy one and actually rip open a pack just to be insane. But someone actually ended up buying one and opening one, and there was only one card in a pack, and the packs are $3,400 each or something. That's what people are asking for, and the packs like don't exist. You can barely find the packs. They're like none in the world. So if that was a legit pack and there was literally only one card, and so there are only one card in each one, it's just crazy. And to get these cards in like PSA 6, PSA 7, PSA 8 grade, they're just non-existent. They're the first ever, to my knowledge, like full-sized and first ever like English Mickey Mouse cards. There are like 1930s French version, which was also at the National, a French company, and then I think there's also these, which I have speculated on a little bit. I don't like the look on these as much. But these I think are from 1937 from who I've talked to, but I don't even know. And I've been digging on these types of cards for the last 2 years. I've been contacting old, guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s who have been engaged in the card market for 40 years, that type of thing, to try to get some sort of information on these. But it's cool to see these things starting to get more attention, starting to broaden out. I've always had sort of a thesis that there's going to be a number of people who start in Pokemon, start in Magic, start wherever in sports, and they're going to become over time card enthusiasts in general, and they're gonna love all of the different pop culture IPs. So we're talking about these old things like Disney, the 1966, like the Marvel Donruss, the 1966 Topps Batman, the 1940, Gumming Superman. And that the interest in that is really going to broaden out. And we've seen that trickle slowly. I think it will continue doing that. So I think as long as card markets in general, people stay really interested in this stuff, I do think that more and more people will learn the rarity, the kind of historical importance, and I think just the objective. I mean, I think they're beautiful, cool cards of some of the most important characters in, certainly in modern history. And these characters, because of social media and just sort of these huge businesses built behind them, these characters could be around for hundreds of years. I mean, nobody knows, obviously no one knows, but I think there's a lot of upside on stuff like this. It's why I really have really pushed people on this channel to learn, go get out there, see all of the different options, understand all of these different markets. I think a lot of people in Pokemon cards are my childhood, and I love them, and I'm still buying Pokemon cards. I'm always going to be buying Pokemon cards. I don't think the Pokemon market is like super overvalued or anything. I think that compared to sports, I think it's still undervalued. A lot of things are still undervalued, but there's still these sort of niche areas and IPs that are still sort of getting a foothold in this stuff that I think there's a lot of potential. And then as a collector, I just love all this stuff, so at the end of the day, I just want to collect all of the different characters, the different IPs, the different backgrounds that I love. And I love introducing this stuff to people and teaching, people about the history of it, the information. I mostly like to do that one-on-one rather than on this channel. You can always come, particularly I really enjoy it when someone's done some of their own research and then they can come to me and ask like very specific questions about, all the different types of boxes that I have behind me and all the different stories. And, rather than just like, hey, Jake, tell me what I should like invest in and speculate in. It's like, well, I've done a year and a half of work talking to a ton of people to figure out, what I think is underappreciated, where some of the most like historic cool cards that are out there that are sort of like not discovered, not talked about so much. And, but if someone comes to me and is like, what do you think about this? Like I'll be like, well, that's, and then I'll point you in the right direction and I'll point you to people to talk to the experts in that sort of niche thing. I'm happy to do that. So that was the coolest part of the National was seeing some of that stuff. Seeing the Mickey stuff was really cool there. John was going to buy the 1996 Topps Batman set. There was a guy selling a complete set for a really good deal. Unfortunately, we sort of passed on it at the moment because we were going to come back later and he was going to grab it, and then someone else snagged it. That happens. When you see a good deal, sometimes you should just take it and not overthink it. Let's see. Chevel says, Pokenomics, hey, Jake, a random question. Did you overall spend more on collectibles than you sold? Or you sold more and you're spending casino money? So like overall or just like at the National? I am still a net positive and I've taken money out of the hobby and put it into stocks. But I'm like every like the last few months, I've spent way more than I've sold. Way more. Now at the convention, I sold more than I bought. I only bought that one box where I pulled that card, and then I sold, more than that, the value of that. So. Did I have fun at the National? Absolutely. Wolfie is on fire. Yeah, Wolfie's the man. It was really great meeting him in person. I've been a big fan of his and his Instagram and his collection. And I never met him in person. I didn't really know, I think we talked one time, maybe a couple of times a while back about DBZ Score. But I didn't really know him. I still don't know him too well in person. We had a nice time. We spent it, had a number of conversations, a decent amount of time at the trade night. Been a big fan of sort of his Instagram for a while. Jake from Palatown says, Jake, I know you are big into the worlds and the stamped. What's your take on the Tropical Wind unstamped? I know it's not the same as the stamped, but for those who can't afford the top end tournament cards, I'm just not sure. It's hard to know how many exist of those. Part of why I like the player ones is they have a far more likely set amount. Even the staff ones are going to vary quite a bit year to year, depending on how much staff there was. It's likely going to relate to the amount, the size of the tournament, the more popular years, like when Pokemon is more popular and there are more competitors at Worlds, are going to have a larger World Tournament. You're going to have a lot more spectators and people coming, so you're going to probably need a lot more staff. Thus, they're probably going to print more of those. Just speculating, But I've heard stories where there were some staff members who would get like 5 staff stamps each, just a couple, some of the biggest staff, and then they probably print extra. So I really like the player stamps for that reason, because I have more of a sense of really what's going on with them. But I don't think even like the just regular stamped ones are going to be like that plentiful. Like I'd be shocked if there was many of those as like Misaki promos. Misaki promos are like 35,000, 38 to 40,000, right, copies. ever printed, which is not a lot compared to set cards. Quite a bit less than set cards. And I would expect these to be like quite like considerably less than that. Like if I had to speculate and throw out a number, complete nonsense. Let's say maybe 5 to 10,000. Somewhere in there. So that's a lot less, right? And then it's going to dramatically change. That would be like of like the most modern years. And if anyone here is super knowledgeable about just the regular standard ones, you can correct me. Maybe that 5,000 number is like far too high. But I also think that they probably create a lot of extras, and I don't know. Hard to know. Sounds like overall was a success. More of a hangout session than heavy on product. Yeah, I mean, the best time again for cards was the trade night, and then hanging with John was really fun, and we had dinner a bunch of times, and then my girlfriend came, which was great, and her aunt, and a friend of hers. So we all had like a family dinner one night at a steakhouse, which was a blast, and Sarah's aunt really loves gambling, so it was fun to go with her to Atlantic City. Great time. And my girlfriend was very supportive of me going off to to nerd out. She even picked me up from the trade night, and I think she hung out at the trade night for 20 or 30 minutes. Probably some of you guys met her briefly. Nathaniel Koster says, what has been the most enriching thing about your engagement with the Pokemon hobby? The most enriching thing. And for those who are just coming on the stream, by the way, feel free. We talked about the National in the beginning. Feel free to ask questions about the National. But you can ask questions about anything. What has been the most enriching thing about your engagement with the Pokemon hobby? A lot of things. I think it changes from time to time. Like there are times when I'm super into just like collecting the cards, and I'm very excited about like learning something new or getting something new in my collection or hunting something, or I'm really excited about the deal I just got. I'm really excited about the money I just made, or like the fact that, a card that I bought really went up in value. Like that's really exciting. And then there's the whole social aspect, friendship aspect, I think looking back, what will be, probably the most meaningful will be, overall the amount of effort and work I put into building the collection and the friendships, at the end of the day. But like along the way, there's a lot of things that's like super fun. And sometimes I'm like a lot more into collecting than I am into socializing. And then other times I'm like a little bored or tired with maybe, a specific part of the hobby in terms of the cards. And I'm really enjoying the friendships and the people that I met and just having conversations. Sometimes I love sharing knowledge and like doing like more of like the teacher education thing. And then sometimes I love being the student and going to people who are, much, much bigger experts than me in certain areas and learning. I love it all. Let's see. At my local trade night, it was heavy on modern alt art. Everyone was wanting modern. That's interesting. Yeah. I would say this trade night felt heavy on vintage. The one that I went to. Mercedes is someone who lives close and only collects Pokemon. It was still a fun event. Ended up selling my entire collection for 70% comps. I could only find around 10 tables that sold Pokemon, which sucked. That's good to sell 70% to a dealer in particular, because dealers will usually be a little more difficult to get full value for sure, because they're looking to resell it. They're usually not collecting at these. The vendors are usually not collecting things, although you never know. I mean, and to be frank, probably most of the vendors do have a private collection. It's just usually that's probably not their main focus at the shows. I know it's generally not mine, but I'm always looking for stuff, so you never know. Mason says, why would you highlight my question? Because I love you. What's your opinion on the artist name on Pokemon cards? Do you think that down the line in like 20 to 30 years, maybe even less, that it could get priced in sort of like our generation's version of fine art? No idea. I mean, I do think that people over time, when you get certain people appreciate certain artists, start to recognize certain artists, and start to value certain artist cards over others for sure. Um, that national is a pretty big deal for a lot of people. Yeah, and I think um and then Mason's I think he was referring to Mason's comment. Mason's just saying he's just trying to be an idiot in no disrespect. Yeah. Mason, if you're trolling in the chat, I may highlight one of your comments. So you got to be careful. I have the power to highlight things now. Yeah, and as someone who just doesn't have the sports expertise, I just don't know how good it was for sports people. I would go onto their channels and see what they think of it this year. Anthony says, "Hey Jake, what's your favorite banned Japanese card?" So I've never been like super into the banned Japanese cards. I'm not even sure if I have a favorite. Like I know what they are. I honestly I don't like them because I feel like a lot of people I feel like that market was kind of created by a lot of people who bought a lot of it and then hyped a lot of them up. And they're really not that rare at all. I also felt there were some influencers who were rip and shippers, medium-sized influencers who were rip and shippers who were opening a lot of like Japanese, like the gym sets and other sorts of things, and they were like benefiting from the fact that it was like fairly easy to pull some of these, Misty and whatever Sabrina, and so it's I don't like it. It really turns me off. I don't really get. I don't get why it's that cool, but also I'm not like these aren't errors, but I'm not like an error collector. I'm not really like that into that sort of stuff. So maybe I just don't get it. But it just like wasn't really a thing. And then it like became a thing by some people who I really don't like. So, but people, if you really like them, people really like them, that's just my experience with them and, just subjective opinion. And at this point, you're like, if people like them, and even though they're very plentiful, and I think they're I don't know the value on some of them now, but they were way overvalued in my opinion for a while there. I'm sure they've come down a lot because of how common they are. They just couldn't sustain the price that they were at. Similar to first edition commons and uncommons, and a lot of the stuff that Dan and I've talked about on the channel. Because these are cards you're pulling. I mean, there's 60 packs in these boxes, in these Japanese boxes, and you're pulling like. You could pull like 15 of them or something, or 10 of them or whatever from a box. I mean, these are common cards. Mert says, there's just so much to learn and engage with Pokemon itself that I haven't found the time or desire to branch out yet. Maybe one day. Yeah. There's no, and I think like I literally just did only Pokemon for the first 3 years. Just Pokemon. Didn't buy anything else. And I just put all my money into the thing that I liked the best, the thing that I understood the best. And when you start getting involved in some of this other stuff, you got to go slow, take your time. I wouldn't just dive in, you got to do your research, feel it out. But yes, I think oftentimes it's for that reason that there's so much undiscovered value. And as people get further on in their Pokemon collections, and then start looking elsewhere, that that's when this stuff tends to go up in value, and particularly the stuff that's very rare, very cool, and has some like interesting historic firsts involved in the cards, I think. Mason says, you do love to point out my stupidity, Jake. Third one of the day. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Hey, Jake, what do you think of black and white PSA 10 selling for high prices compared to other 10s from other eras with similar low pops? I don't know what other eras you're talking about specifically. You'd have to give me like a little bit more specifics, but um, and also like which black and white, right? Because like they're the black and white. My foot is killing me. I'm sorry. I have some ankle problem right now. Give me one sec. Ugh. Um, you have like your secret rares, your big hitters, and then your regular hollows. I do think even some of the regular hollows on in black and white are selling for a decent amount. But I mean, there are some other there are tens from like the Diamond and Pearl era and from the EX original Nintendo era that sell for a huge amount, and also from like Expedition. I mean, like the lowest pop cards are still going for like $15,000-$20,000 from E series. So, um, you know, Rainy Day Collectible says biggest card you saw at the event. So that I actually saw. I mean, I know that there was like I think the Illustrator 10 was there. I heard. I saw like the Mickey Mantle. There's like a few Mickey Mantles I saw there that are worth many millions. I know there's one being there's a 10 right that's being auctioned off, and people are speculating it could go for like 12 million, but we'll see. I don't know, 15 million. I've heard. I don't know. Crazy stuff. Let's see what we got here. Jake, I just figured out MTG has sorted trophies, kind of like that they're not at all a thing, but cheap. They're hard as hell to figure out, though. Any intel? Oh, God. Sorry, guys. What is happening with my ankle? I hurt my ankle badly playing basketball like 2 weeks ago, and I'm still getting some pain occasionally. Yeah, so I don't really know MTG super well. I do know there are like cards that are given out to um like company employees that are like very sought after, that are quite rare. But yeah, just not. I don't really know MTG super well. So in MTG, I mainly am just like working on like alpha beta sets. I'm very basic. I'm like the Pokemon guy who's just going after, base jungle fossil, which there's no harm in that. Those are, the places to start, but definitely, I didn't really, I didn't collect or really play Magic that much when I was a kid. So I don't have like such an, huge connection to Magic. I did see some cool Magic stuff. Not that much, but a little bit at the national, and I did think about making some offers, but it would have been a lot of money, and there were some good alpha rares, and I didn't feel like spending that much money on that right now. I just think that there are other things right now that I feel like are, that's the type of stuff that although I think it's great, I think it's going to be there. Unless you're looking for like perfect grades on stuff, even though it's quite rare, I think like some of your serialized, some of your old Disney, your old Superman, like that stuff, I just think is actually so much rarer and scarcer, particularly in high grade. And then serialized stuff and some of this modern Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, whatever it is, or like Harry Potter, and Marvel. That's the stuff that once it gets bought by a collector because it's serialized and it's like there's only one, there's only 10, there's only 5, whatever, it can just disappear. So because it's late and I'm pretty tired, I'm actually going to do like a super short stream tonight. So definitely drop your questions below. I'm going to try to go for like another 15 minutes, and then we're just going to cut it. But I just wanted to give like my quick hit thoughts on the Nationals. And Let's see. What about really cool miscut cards? Are you asking me like, do I like those? Am I a fan? Just doesn't do it for me. I was sitting with Zach Gem Mint at Collecticon, Gem Mint Pokemon, and he was going through my binders, and like I brought a bunch of like I randomly just brought like a couple of like long boxes just filled with like random stuff that I had picked through to grade like the more pristine stuff. So most of these cards were like light play in your mint, and he was going through and like picking out like all these like slight variations and things that I like never noticed. Not things that like would technically be like considered errors by at least most people or maybe almost anyone. But he would see like this one is slightly more yellow, this one the blues are slightly different, like, and so he in that sense he's super into that sort of thing of just like all the little variations. My sense too is like, so people who've been like doing this for 10 to 15 years, I guess what I do is like I do like 25 different card games and collectibles and all sorts of things. There's some guys who like they just do Pokemon or like mainly, and so I guess that's where you get like super deep into like all the different variations of like the different colors of base set and all these types of stuff. And I think it's cool. I love listening to these guys talk about it. It's part of why, like, we're gonna bring Charlie on into like the, to do something in the Patreon, hopefully, when we figure that out. And one thing we might have Charlie. I want to bring Charlie, and we brought Rusty on. These guys who just have so much more knowledge than me about all the little intricacies and details. I follow the market very closely and engage in the market and other markets to compare it to and bring value that way. But these guys just have such a deeper level of knowledge on sort of the history and the niches of various things. And although that stuff isn't always very important for like the market and for prices, as someone who like loves this stuff, I love listening to them talk about it. Hopefully people do too. I know that a number of people subscribe to this channel on Patreon because they're mostly interested in like the market analysis and all that sort of stuff. But I think a lot of us, probably the majority of us, really are love the history and although we like the market stuff, we're also super passionate about knowing a bunch of really interesting details about everything. And those are the guys that I look to as well as many people on like E4, a number of people on E4. Let's see. Mert says somebody broke an EX Deoxys box tonight, $12.50 a pack. How does it maintain that 40 to 50K price? Those are terrible EV. Obviously, Rayquaza with pull rate so low, it's a crazy price. Yeah, my question is like, is it a big influencer that people really like? Are they going to get a shout out? Like, I would never ever open one of those packs at $12.50 a pack. It's just, but like, if you have a lot of money and you're very wealthy and you just want the experience, like, all the power to you, definitely do not open those packs for value. Let's see. What are your thoughts on the authenticity guarantee? Raw cards, yes, graded cards now. So I just had some. Where did I put them? These guys, this is what they come in for the eBay authenticity guarantee. There's little snap cases. I just bought some Star Wars cards that came in those because they were met the threshold, the price threshold. I don't know. As someone who like I haven't been selling that much on eBay at the moment, I'm glad that I sold a lot before like I had to deal with that. Most of the stuff I'm selling right now is like friends, Instagram, people watch this channel, Patreon members. I'm really selling like 10 to 15 cards a month right now. So it's just not something I've had to deal with. And Yeah. What do you think of the next Destiny's PSA 10 with the white dot print error plaguing the cards? Don't even know what that is. So you're teaching me something new. So there's a white dot that's on a lot of them that you're saying it plagues it. So it's are they on the PSA 10s and they gave the PSA 10 anyway, or you have to tell me? Russ has a lot of attention on errors with the error nutrition facts card selling for that much. Yeah. Um, yeah. I also like worry that errors can be faked. And I mean, it depends on like, there are obviously errors that are like super, um, that are like well documented or known and existed clearly, and there's a pattern of them and they all look the same and they all happened like long before things had value. But stuff like the nutritional facts card, like, I don't know. I'm not saying I don't think that it's faked, but it's like stuff like that just like concerns me. Like, how do you, and this could just be me not understanding the process, but like, how can you make sure that that's like factory error versus someone just like rubbing that on to a card and then saying it's like an error? I don't know. But again, I'm not saying uh, that anyone specifically did that with those cards, but and it just doesn't appeal to me. It's ugly. Like I want the card without that. I don't know. But again, it's totally my bias. Like, you should like and go after what you love and what makes you excited and, and not what I think. Who cares what I think? Professor Oak says, "How do we get a Jake playmat?" Yeah, so I don't have any merch. I never really planned to do any merch. But maybe I'll do some for fun for just like a few people and myself or something. I don't know. And maybe I'll exchange. I like wearing, I do have to say I enjoy wearing like Mason's merch, John's merch. Like I want to get some Squeaks merch. Like anyone who has merch, like wearing my friend's merch is like hilarious and fun to me. So maybe I'll make a little bit and we can trade with the people who like have their stuff too. I'll tell you what, if you make some merch, Professor Oak, we can trade our merch with each other. How about that? Retrograde says, I missed the beginning. So, what was the best Pokemon card you saw? Also, how did Pokemon seem to be generally? Were you one of the only vendors? High money, low money? So, I didn't vend. Um, the best Pokemon card that I actually saw was probably the Shadowless Blastoise PSA 10 that sold. But I know there were. Oh no, I saw some better. I saw some higher value cards in that weren't for sale, like in sort of the corporate cases and stuff. But the one that was actually for sale and it actually sold um, was that card. Um, the Pokemon prices, there wasn't that much Pokemon, and I thought the Pokemon was priced pretty high. So it wasn't like people were like dumping it for super low prices or anything. So, and when I say there wasn't that much Pokemon, like there was probably about a little bit less Pokemon than you'll get at Collecticon because the National is so huge. Like, but percentage wise, it was probably like less than 5% of the show. But because it's so massive compared to even Collecticon, which Collecticon's very big. Um, so there was a decent amount of it. It's hard to find though, because you're looking everywhere. You have to look through so much sports to find it. And I'm sure I missed quite a bit. But whenever I saw it, there were cards that I wasn't that particularly interested in, a lot of like middle, low graded stuff, a decent amount of modern. And even on that stuff, the prices was like higher, like twice as high as I'm buying like an auction on eBay in many cases. That was weird. Everything just went off. All right, I'm back. Where are we here? Yeah. Mojo Stoneboxer says, will Weiss Schwartz Marvel add interest to the older Marvel cards? Will that help or hurt Weiss? It might. Marvel of all of the different IPs right now that's non-Pokemon, like those types of big IPs, is the most sort of like there was quite a bit of Marvel at the National. There was basically like no Star Wars or very little Star Wars. So Marvel is like pretty established at this point, and there's a lot of people who are into Marvel. But now, will Marvel Weiss Schwartz like help a little bit? Every little bit probably helps, but I wouldn't expect like any significant boost or anything. I do think that the Donruss stuff is probably, although people at the National, so I bought like a couple complete Donruss, the 1966 sets, and people at the National were asking so much. Like, I don't know if they're selling at those prices, but like I bought my complete set, and it's mostly like 6s and 7s and 8 quality. And I bought that complete set for about $2,000, and people at the National were asking like $10,000. So, but again, I don't think they were selling at that. And it has gone up probably since then, but it's probably worth like 5,000 now, but people are asking like 10,000. Now, would they have negotiated and come down? But probably. But I was not like when I sold at Collecticon, my prices were like best on eBay. And some things I was selling at like the last auction sold price. And I was surprised that vendors, how high people price stuff, because I find that I can buy stuff in lots or in auction, really good auctions that kind of fall way below market, and then still sell at or around market and make really good profit. It was interesting to me that vendors' strategy in some cases was to like list so high. And just, it's weird though with the National guys, like there's no service, so people can't look up, or the service is very spotty. You can look up a little sometimes, but like, first of all, it's really annoying because you can't find people. You can't find your friends. So if you get lost, it's really frustrating and hard to find people again. But with looking up prices and looking up comps, you can't, like, it's really hard to do that. So I almost feel like sometimes people, and I would hear people just say like, okay, I'll trust you to the vendor or like whatever, without actually actively looking up the comps, which is interesting. And so I wonder if that's like, people do spend a lot more than they might if they're able to look it up. I don't know. Jake, if you had to invest in only one era between X, Y, and Sun and Moon, which era would you choose? Thanks for the sudden, unexpected live. Invest in? I think Sun and Moon has some better value. So there are cards in both X and Y and Sun and Moon that I think are good and undervalued. And to really answer your question honestly, it doesn't make much sense to think in terms of like this era good, this era bad. Generally speaking, it makes more sense to look at the positives and negatives. Generally speaking, so the first half of XY is very different than the second half of XY, right? And then in Sun and Moon, there's some sets that were printed a lot more than other sets. There's some sets that have some key rainbow rares, key Pokemon on rainbow rares that I think are quite undervalued still. And there's some XY full arts and things like that I think that there's probably some decent value, even though some of that stuff has gone up quite a bit. If I had to guess, I think there are probably more undervalued cards right now in Sun and Moon. But largely that's because the prices are just quite low on those. The early XY stuff is going to be harder to grade, generally speaking. The full arts, and is going to be probably rare in terms of less of that printed. But the price point in many cases is a lot higher and already reflects that. I think there might be some more room for some of the Sun and Moon, the rainbow rare stuff to grow. That would be my overall take. But it wouldn't there's good stuff in both, is what I would say. Will you be doing your Q&A tomorrow where I bring people on? No. So I won't have a video on the channel tomorrow. Tomorrow I actually have my monthly Patreon live Zoom call where we do like a market analysis stuff. So that's tomorrow. Squeaks in the chat. What's up, Squeaks? Good to see you. You got to come to events, man. We missed you. Yuck, yum, Matt. So I think I'm just going to answer like one or two more questions, and then I am going to call it a night. I apologize for not being on super long. So I'm going to answer just the next like 2 or 3 questions that get asked. So if you have a question, you can quickly put in. Jake, do you think that it would have been a good idea to vend with the lack of strictly Pokemon at the National? So it's very expensive to vend at the National. I heard like $2,500 a table or something. I don't know if that's really true. That might be for like a few tables. That's a lot. That's like 10 times the amount that I'm paying at like Collecticon. So, I'd really have to like sell a lot and sell like over market, which people seem to be able to do there, maybe more than Collecticon. I have no interest in that. I have no interest in giving money to the National or whoever's behind the National so that I can like upcharge like collectors more. Like I would much rather like the lower dollar value I can do on the table so that I can like charge the least possible for the cards so that it actually makes sense for everyone. Like that's a much better, more fun thing. But to the point of your question, which is sort of like a strategic question, if I'm just trying to make money, maybe, I do think like if I had brought like my good stuff and also like a lot of my like my best stuff, and I'm sure that it would have been somewhat a buzz within the small amount of Pokemon people there, or the small amount of people there. Like it probably would have been a hangout spot where a lot of people congregated. Precisely to your point, because there wasn't really that, and there weren't any like PokeTubers or people from the Pokemon community that people recognize. They didn't have any booths that I saw, so there wasn't really like a congregation point where we had more of that at Collecticon. All right, last question of the night. Do we know when CGC will start the video game grading? So I actually met I guess he's the vice president of CGC. Super nice guy. Talked to him for a bit about like when they're going to start grading Star Wars and like other sorts of things. But I didn't ask him about video game grading, but I'm sure I could reach out to him and ask, or you probably could too. Very approachable guy. Should be interesting if they start to do that. Or when, whatever. So I'm going to end it there for the night. Again, appreciate you all. I'll probably see some of you guys tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern for the live Zoom on Patreon. Appreciate all you guys' support. And yeah, I hope everyone's having a really good night. I hope everyone had a really good week. Just wanted to do this short video and get it out there for you all because I hadn't made any content the whole week. I know I should and people would probably really enjoy me making content actually at the shows, actually with people. Radar did film some of us walking around and did film us opening some packs of Masterwork. So maybe he'll release that and people can watch it and enjoy it. I just like being there and present, and I don't enjoy making edited style content and thinking about strategically will this be a good shot? Will people like to watch it? It just takes me out of looking at the cards and being a collector, and I love just nerding out and collecting the cards. And hanging out with my friends. I don't like thinking about what's going to sell and what are people going to like and all that stuff. So it's unpleasant for me. So that's why I don't do it. And why I just come back and do these impromptu live streams, because I enjoy them the most. But Jake needs a cameraman. Yeah. I mean, it would be cool to like have a cameraman shoot some deals that I make, like actually negotiate a deal on camera, talk about why I'm paying the price that I'm paying, that sort of stuff, you know. Um, so, but hope everyone has a good night, and I will talk to you all. Probably talk to a number of you guys soon. All right, take care.